Hello team and welcome back to the channel. So today is day 3 of our AWS DevOps bootcamp, and today we are going to get started with EC2 machines in AWS, that also in detail. So make sure to check it out, and also team, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out any of the videos. Also team, batch 7 of DevSecOps and Cloud DevOps has already started. If interested to learn from scratch, make sure to check this out, check out this course in the description. You will get all the details there. Okay, now with that being said, let's get started. Now team, let's get started. So now, before we get started with the EC2 machines, we need to understand about one concept which is known as virtualization. Okay, so we need to first understand this concept and then only we'll be moving to next. Now what is virtualization? So it's basically a technology that allows one physical computer, which is also going to be called as host, to run several virtual computers which are called as virtual machines. Okay, for example, let us say that this is my physical computer that I have on my, let's say, on my room. Okay, and this physical computer, we are going to call it as host. Now what we can do using virtualization, which is a technology that is going to help us to run several virtual computers inside this. Okay, let's say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and this is 6. Okay, let's name them as well. Now, inside one physical computer, which we are calling as a host, we are able to run 6 computers, which are also going to be called as virtual computers or virtual machines. Now, each of these computers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it is going to act as a separate independent computer with its own operating system, storage, and applications. So as I mentioned that these 6 computers, they are going to act as a separate independent computer with its own operating system, storage, and applications. And the best part is that they can act like a separate computer, even though they are using all of these 6 machines, they are using the same physical hardware which belongs to the host computer. Okay, now so virtualization, I hope it's very clear. Now talking about why virtualization is useful. So basically the main purpose of using virtualization is to make better use of computer physical resources. Physical resources are what? Physical resources is the CPU, RAM, storage. So basically virtualization can be used to make better use of these physical resources. How we can use this? So when we create separate VMs are like virtual computers, right? So each computer, each VM will be needing some amount of CPU, some amount of RAM, some amount of storage. So let's say we are having, let's say in total, let's say we are having 16 GB of RAM. Okay, and we created, let's say 3 VMs. Okay, 3 VM we created. To each VM, let's say I am giving around 4 GB of RAM, 12, right? Rest 4 GB of RAM, I'll just keep it for running my host computer. Okay, so in this way you can see that all the physical resources are better utilized, right? So using virtualization, why virtualization is useful? First of all, it improves resource efficiency. Okay, resource efficiency. How it's uses, how it's basically improving the resource efficiency, because it uses the full potential of the hardware instead of letting the parts of it sit idle. Because if you are having 16 GB of RAM, we can utilize it to full, right? Similarly, second benefit that we are having, it is going to reduce hardware cost. Okay, how it's going to reduce hardware cost? So basically, instead of buying multiple physical computers, you can run multiple VMs on each machine. For example, let's say I have just one physical or host computer, but I have requirements of other computers as well. So instead of buying new computers from outside, we can utilize the resources, physical resources, the hardwares that we are having on the host machine to create virtual computers or virtual machines. Okay, which is going to help us reduce the hardware cost. Now, third benefit that we are having, it basically simplifies management. What do I mean by that? Because so basically when I say virtualization is going to help us simplify management, it basically means that it is much easier to manage and control virtual environments on one host than managing multiple separate computers. Okay, basically it means to say that, let's say we are having this physical machine, which is the host. So on this machine, if you are having, let's say 3 virtual computers, 1, 2, 3. So it will be much easier to manage these 3 machines because they are on the same host machine. Okay, instead of managing these like separately, they are not on different location, or they are not separate computers, right? they are running on the same host machine, so it's easier to manage this virtual computers. Okay, so these are the main reasons or main benefits of using virtualization. Now let us understand the concept of hypervisors in virtualization, which is a very important concept. So team, now let us understand the concept of hypervisor. What is hypervisor? Also team, please ignore the spelling mistakes because I'm trying to write little fast, so it might be there might be some spelling mistakes. Just ignore it. Okay. Now what is hypervisor? So hypervisor is a special type of software that is going to sit between computers, physical hardware, and its virtual machines. For example, let us say that this is my physical machine or the host machine. Okay, physical computer that we have. Now there will be a special type of software which we are going to call as hypervisor. Let's denote it with HV. Now what it's going to do, let's say I want to create 3 virtual computers. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now this hypervisor, this is the software that is going to sit between the host hardware resources that we have, like RAM, CPU, storage, those things, and it is going to be the one who is going to manage how much RAM, how much CPU will be given to those virtual computers. Okay, let's say this is my hardware layer, so this hypervisor will be sitting between these virtual machines and the hardware of the host machine, which is going to decide how much RAM, how much CPU, how much storage, these kind of things will be given to the virtual machine that we created. Okay, sorry about this. Now, so one more thing that hypervisor, first thing is that hypervisor is going to be working as a manager that is going to decide and like manage how much RAM, CPU, and those things will be given to the virtual machine. Second thing that is quite useful that hypervisor is responsible for, it's going to keep each of the virtual machines separate, so that they do not, there is no kind of issues with respect to conflict or anything else. That is, hypervisor is also responsible for keeping these virtual computers or virtual machines separate. Okay. Now talking about type of hypervisor, so there are mainly 2 type of hypervisor. First one is known as type 1, which is also known as bare metal. Second type of hypervisor that we have is known as type 2, or you can also call it as hosted. Okay. Now what exactly is the difference between these two? So talking about the first kind of hypervisor, which is type 1. Now main thing that you need to understand that these type 1 hypervisors, they run directly on the physical hardware. Physical hardware is again what? CPU, RAM, and storage. So type 1 hypervisor, or the bare metal hypervisor, it's going to run directly on the physical hardware without any other operating system, and they are very efficient and commonly used in data centers. Okay, data centers, if for those who are not aware, basically most of the companies use data centers which exist in, maybe it could be different locations, and the companies are going to store all their data and everything on those data centers. Okay, now example of first kind of hypervisor which we have, which is known as VMware ESXi. This is one example. Second example, we have Microsoft Hyper-V. Okay, again type 1 runs directly on the hardware. Second kind of hypervisor that we have, which is type 2 hosted. Now these hypervisors are going to run on the top of an existing operating system like Windows or Mac OS. Okay, and they are typically used for testing or personal use. So the hypervisor that we generally use, these are like mostly type 2 only, because they are used for like testing or personal use. And the example that you might have already heard about it, one you have already heard is known as VirtualBox. Second one is known as VMware Workstation. Okay, so I am sure like you might have already heard about this. And using these hypervisors, we can directly create virtual machines on our host machines or the personal computers. Okay, so these are hypervisors who is going to be responsible for helping you to create the virtual machines, decide how much RAM and how much CPU and how much storage should be given to those virtual machines created. Okay, now once we have understood the concept of hypervisor and virtualization, now we can get started with understanding virtual machines and EC2 in AWS. So team, now let's understand the virtual machines. Okay, basics we already understood. So virtual machines is what? It is a software based computer created by hypervisor. We understood hypervisor, right? So now benefit is that even though the virtual machine is not a physical machine, the virtual machine that we create, it's not a physical machine, but it's going to act like one using the physical resources, okay, resources that a host machine can provide to the virtual machines, okay. The main benefit of having virtual machine is that, first of all, isolation, okay, because if you are creating multiple virtual machines using a host machine, each of the virtual machine is going to be separate. Why it's going to be separate? Because hypervisor is responsible to keep them separate. So if one virtual machine has an issue, it won't affect the others, okay. Second benefit of using virtual machines or working with it is the scalability, okay. For example, let's say I have taken a physical server or physical machine. Now physical machine, if it's a physical server, we cannot we cannot scale it, we cannot increase RAM or storage, right? But if you are using virtual machines, then you can easily add, remove, or change them to feed the requirements, okay. If you have requirement, let's say I have a virtual machine that is currently having 2 GB of RAM. So if I have a requirement to have 4 GB of RAM, we can scale it, we can increase those resources, okay. So that is the scalability part, that is the benefit of it. Then we have portability, okay. That is also quite interesting and quite useful concept. So basically, virtual machines do not depend on specific hardware, they can be moved to different computers or environment without any issues, okay. So that's why it's saying portability, or they are portable, okay. So now team, let us understand EC2 machines. First of all, the full form. So EC2 stands for Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, okay. This keyword that you are seeing, compute, because most of the virtual machines or any kind of physical server, mostly we are going to use it for computing purposes, okay. Talking about how EC2 is going to use the virtualizations. Basically, first of all, we should know that EC2 is a kind of service that exists in AWS, which is going to help us create virtual machines, okay. So what happens? We have AWS. AWS EC2 service is a specific kind of service that is going to provide virtual machines in the cloud. These VMs that are created, they are created in the cloud, that is on AWS, okay. And these machines are going to allow us, or going to help us run applications without need to manage the physical servers. As we discussed already, these are not physical servers, they are just virtual servers that gets created in cloud from AWS side, that we can use to perform any kind of computing task, okay. Now, behind the scenes, what happens? EC2 uses virtualization to create, manage, and allocate resources to the VMs. Okay. Again, we discussed the first point is virtualization. So this concept of virtualization is being used by EC2 machines, used by EC2 services to create, manage, and terminate the virtual machines that it creates. Okay. One very interesting benefit that we have with EC2 machines is that elasticity. What is elasticity? So unlike traditional VMs, which might be like the traditional virtual machines, so EC2 machines or EC2 instances can be created, resized, or terminated on demand, allowing for greater flexibility and scaling according to the requirement. Okay, that is one of the best part about EC2 machines, that it can be created, it can be resized, like resize in computing power, like increase or decrease of RAM, CPU, or like storage. Those can be basically it refers to resizing of for that. And these are, we can even terminate it as well, as per if we do not have the requirement, or even we can stop it. Terminating is like deleting everything. Stopping is like just kind of like pausing it. Okay. Now, and all these things can be done on demand. That's why this is the best part, like all these things can be done on demand as per the requirement. Okay, so this refers to elasticity of the EC2 service. Okay, now again talking about the benefits, what benefits we have for EC2 machines. First, we have on demand. As I say, everything we can create, we can increase, decrease, or create or terminate these virtual machines as per the demand whenever there is a requirement. Then again, simplified management. This is the another important thing, because even I use most machines from AWS, because as compared to any other cloud platform, managing virtual machines from AWS is much easier, which I'll show you in a bit. The third benefit that we have is the wide range of machines that AWS is going to provide. Now, when I say wide range, is basically means based on requirements, you can create any size of machine. That, for example, the minimum or the least size machine that we have is 𝗡4𝗃.nano, which has 2 CPU and 0.5 GB of RAM, GIB of RAM inside the virtual machine. And biggest we are having around U24TB1.metal, which has 448 CPUs and 24 TB of RAM. Okay, and probably even this is the biggest machine that I have heard about as of now. Okay, so you can see that there is a wide range of machines that you can create from smallest to biggest. So there are different kind of machines that based on requirement we can select that we want to utilize. Okay, so these are some of the main benefits of using virtual machines from AWS. Okay, now let us get started with the exact EC2 machine, understanding it, what kind of services it does provide, what kind of machine it has, and what are the different components and how to set it up. Okay, so team, now before we create the EC2 machine, we should know about two concepts, which is quite important: AMI, which is Amazon Machine Images, and the EC2 instance type. Okay, so first let us understand the AMI, what kind of AMI we are having. So basically they are basically, you know, what kind of operating system you want to create, you can select it from here, from AMIs. Now talking about what kind of AMI we are having, so first of all we are having AWS provided. These are kind of like default AMIs that will be present and that are like not pre-configured. They are having the basic OS images like the AWS Linux, then we have Ubuntu machines, then we have Windows. These are the basic ones. Okay, then we have community AMIs. Okay, now community AMIs, what are they? They are basically AMIs shared by other AWS users, often pre-configured with some software. So if you want to use some AMI from community for Ubuntu, then it is possible that some users might have already configured it to have some in the tools pre-installed. Like let's say if we have requirement of Java pre-installed, then we can find some AMIs in the community AMI section. Okay, third kind of AMIs that we have is known as custom AMIs. Okay, these are also created by users for specific application or configuration. So there are certain scenarios where we have certain kind of application which requires specific configuration. In that case, we can set up our own custom AMIs. Okay, but generally this is the most preferred one because it has the default and basic images. So yeah, this one is the main that we use. Talking about instance types, so there are many instance types that can be utilized, out of which we are going to understand the small in a brief way about these instances. First we have, which is known as general purpose. Inside this we have generally we have T2, T3, like that. These are the basically, you know, balanced resources for web servers. They have like, they are not very big in size, but they have, for example, like in T2 we have T2 medium, which can have 4 GB of RAM. Okay, so these are like having balanced resources, like everything, RAM, CPU, these things will be in a balanced way available. Okay, and they are useful for web servers, small database, and general applications only. That's why the name general purpose. Talking about the next kind of instance type, we have, where is it? Sorry. Next we have compute optimize. Now in compute optimize, we have different like example can be C5, C6Z. Now basically these compute optimized instance type, they have they are optimized for high CPU performance for like batch processing kind of task. Like these machines will be having high CPU basically. Okay, then we have memory optimized, where we can have R5, then X1E. These are some examples. So they have high memory capacity for databases. So basically these machines will be having very high memory, like in TB they can have RAMs. Okay, then we have storage optimized. In that we can have I3, we can have D2. So these instance type, they are specifically created for the high speed local storage. Okay, and these are quite useful for data warehousing and analytics. So they can have very high storage, you can say. Okay, then we have accelerated computing. In that example we can have P4 or G4. Now these machines, these instance types include GPU for machine learning or high graphics applications. Okay, So yeah, these generally there are many examples, but generally for our own self-learning and practice, we use with general purpose. They have everything in balanced way, and we use it for that. Okay. So team, now let us go and let us create EC2 machines properly and understanding it side by side. For that, first of all, I have to go to Amazon AWS console login page. Here you can see the option IAM user sign in or the root user email sign in, right? Whichever option you want you can set up, but for IAM user sign in you need to make sure that you have created an IAM user with proper credentials so that you'll be able to log in. For now, let us go with root user email. I can click on that, provide the user email, click on password, and then we have to provide the authentic that token MFA code, which you'll be able to get on your phone once you have registered. So I'll put there 806 and I can submit. Now we have logged in. Okay. So now, whenever you create an AWS account, there are few things that are created by default. If I try to show you VPC and all networking concept, we are going to understand in next session. Okay. If I open this, this is the primary PVC, or it's a kind of default VPC that will be available in your account. Okay. Other than that, there will be one subnet also that will be available by default. Subnet, and here let me show you the default ones. So these are also another subnets that are available by default. Okay, and you can see they are for three different availability zones. Okay, so these things will be present by default. Now what you have to do, you have to click on this search for EC2 and go on EC2 dashboard, click on launch instance. Okay, here we'll provide a name like server. Scroll down and then we have AMI. What is AMI? Amazon Machine Image. So what kind of image you want, basically the operating system, what kind of operating system you want for your virtual machine, you can select from here. If I click on browse more AMIs, and here you'll be find there are so many different kind of AMI available that are provided by Amazon or provided by communities. Communities are basically, if I click on that, you'll be able to see a lot of different machine images. So basically for community AMIs, there are people who are going to create AMIs that have some softwares pre-installed. Okay, so there are certain requirements where you need to have some operating system based virtual machine which has some kind of software pre-installed that you'll be able to find here. But generally we go with quick start AMIs. Here you'll be able to see these are the ones that are quite widely used. Okay, coming back to UI, yeah, here first let's provide the virtual machine name. I'll just go with server and quick start. Most of the machine that is highly used is Amazon Linux or the Ubuntu. In companies, Ubuntu machine is the one that is being highly used. Okay, then we have the version, which version of AMI we want. You can expand it and you'll be able to see different versions. For now we have 24.04, which is the LTS version. LTS means long-term support. So these LTS versions are kind of stable, and I always recommend to use LTS versions of machines only. Okay, scrolling down architecture, you can select whatever you want. Generally I just leave it as it is. Scroll down the instance type. So based on like what is your requirement, what kind of computing task you want to do, based on that you can decide. And here if I open this, you can see the list that we have available is T2 Nano. Okay, and second we have free tier, this T2 Micro, which is free tier, so make sure to go with it. Now T2 Micro is good for just small things, just practicing, checking how machine was or how machine is working. Those things is fine. But when you have actual compute task, my recommendation would be to go with T2 Medium, because this is the machine that is being used in most companies for general things. Okay, I'll explain in detail also what kind of instance type we have. Then we have key pair, which is going to be used for login. So let me explain you about this key pair. So basically in virtual machines, sorry about that. So basically in virtual machines, basically what we have, uh, when we talk about Linux machines, okay, so in Linux machine, basically what happens, let's say this is my Linux machines. Okay, and let's say I want to access this machine, so there will be a key pair. What is a key pair? So in key pair there are two components. First is the public key, second is the private key. Okay, now public key, assume this as a form of lock. Okay, and private key as the key to this lock. Okay, Now basically when we create a virtual machine of Linux kind through AWS, what AWS is going to do, it's going to put this lock inside the Linux machine. Okay. Now I know that these key pairs, so the key to this lock is the private key that we have, and once this lock is put on the Linux machine, we can use this private key to open it, right? And this is how authentication or access to machine is given. Once you create a virtual machine, by default one public keys will be copied inside the Linux machine, and the private key or the private key pair of that public key will be available to you, which you can use for accessing the machine. Okay, so here we have this option, right? Generally, if you are doing this for the first time, you need to click on create new key pair, and once you have created, you can use the same key pair always. So for now, I'll click on create new key pair, and here we can provide any kind of name. I'm just going to name it AWS DevOps Bootcamp. Okay, this is my name. Key pair type is going to be the RSA only. Okay, and this is RSA is kind of like encryption, so you can select this. Then the private key file formats. So format, you should go with PEM format and click on create key pair. Once you click on that, it will be downloaded on your system and it will be automatically selected. Next time when you are creating any virtual machine, you can select any key you want. Okay, so I can just go ahead with this one, the key that we just created. Then we have network settings. Now network settings, what we have to do, we have to decide what access level will be there for our virtual machine. What kind of access will be there? So basically, let's say this is my Linux machine that we created, Linux VM. Now, okay, so first level of access will be key from this Linux machine. Let's say this is my internet. This is internet. Okay. So first thing that we need to make sure, we need to find out what kind of access we are providing so that communication from this machine will be able to go outside. Okay. Like let's say this Linux machine needs to access github.com. So we need to make sure that that is available, the access is allowed. So this is outbound. And to manage this kind of things, we have to set up rules. Those rules are going to be called as outbound rules. Okay. Coming to next we have inbound rules. Basically, from internet, if you want to, if something wants to access our machine from internet, then that also needs to be defined and allowed. For example, let's say this is my personal laptop, the laptop that I'm currently working on. So if I want to access this virtual machine from my personal laptop, I need to make sure that the access to this virtual machine is allowed from the IP address of my personal computer. If it is allowed, then only access will be given to Linux machine. Okay. Third scenario could be there that I want key from anywhere in the world. If they have the private key, which is the key for our machine, and if they have the IP address of the machine and the username of the machine, then they should be able to access machine from anywhere. Okay. In that case, what rule we have to set up? Okay. So let me show you how we can configure this. If I go back here you can see we have the option security groups, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create this in another tab and let me show you. So here you can see this option on dashboard page. We have this option security groups. So click on that. Let's create a new security group so that we can understand in detail. And let me remove the old one. Okay, refresh the page. Okay, so now creating new security group. So okay, so first from here we have to provide basic details. So I'm going to provide the name as AWS DevOps Bootcamp SG for security group. Description, same thing we can put. You can put anything, whatever you want. Then there will be one default VPC available that you can use directly without any issue. So it is available by default only. Okay. Then we have inbound rules. Okay, before inbound rules, let's see the outbound rules. That means from our virtual machine, communication to outside is allowed to where. Okay, so here you can select custom also. Like in here you can write specific IP addresses where the communication should be allowed. But if you want that from your virtual machine communication should be allowed to everywhere outside, then you should just add the CIDR block, which basically tells that from your virtual machine traffic is allowed to go any kind of IPv or IPv6 addresses. Okay, so that you can do. Then we have inbound rules. Now here what we have to set, first we need to decide if communication is allowed from outside to the virtual machine, then on what specific ports it should be allowed. For example, first port that we should be opening is 22, which is the port for SSH. Now port for SSH basically means, when we are going to connect to our virtual machine using this private key pair, public key and private key, then this communication happens over the port 22. That means if I want to access my virtual machine using private key and public key, then port 22 should be open on the virtual machine, then only we will be able to communicate. Then we have source. Now source is the section where you define from where the access is allowed. For example, if I select my IP, then this basically means that communication will be allowed only from my personal laptop which has this IP address. But if I want that my machine should be allowed from any, the access to the machine should be allowed from anywhere, then I can go with this block. This means that the communication or the traffic to the virtual machine is allowed from anywhere on port 22. Okay. Second thing that we are going to open, the port is going to be 80. Here also we are going to set the source will be this, as 80 is the port for HTTP. Okay. Then we are going to open port 443, which is going to be the port for HTTPS. And then generally what I do, I open a range of port 3-10,000. Because as you know, most of the application we deploy or tools we deploy, they are running in this port range only. Okay. Now I have opened this and I have set up inbound rules and outbound rules. So now I can simply click on create security group. Security group is created. Now we can go back here, click on existing ones, and here we can select the security group that we have created. Okay. So this will make sure that our application is accessible from anywhere if the keys are available, and it from virtual machine to outside everywhere communication is allowed. Okay. Storage we can decide. So I can go with, generally I just suggest to go with initially 15 is fine. Rest this you don't have to change, and rest you don't have to change anything else. Okay. So here summary, you can see these are the things that we have configured, and we can click on launch instance and let's wait for it. Click on instances, and here you can see our machine is in pending state. It's getting created. So when it is in pending state, you won't be able to access the machine. So what we have to do now, first thing that I suggest to install a tool known as 𝗦𝘁XTERM. Why I suggest to use this application, because most people are working or practicing using their office laptop only, and generally on office laptop you cannot install any tool. So in that scenario, what you have to do, what I suggest, go to this website, click on download, and this option that you see, home edition, click on this, free, which is completely free. Here you have two options, portable edition and installer edition. I suggest to install portable edition because in this way you'll be able to install this tool on your personal office laptop as well. Even I use this option only. Using this option, basically what happens, it's going to give you a zip folder which you just have to extract, and anytime you want to access 𝗦𝘁XTERM, you just have to click on the exe file. So I click on download and this will be downloaded. Once it is downloaded, you'll be able to see a zip file. Once you extract that zip file, once again let me delete it. So once you extract that zip file, this folder will be available, and this file that you see, 𝗦𝘁XTERM personal, this application is the one where you, if I click double time, it will be opening 𝗦𝘁XTERM, and this is the best way that you should be using. Now few things that you should be knowing in order to access or connect to your virtual machine. First things, click on settings, click on this configuration, and make sure that you go to SSH and make sure SSH-Key Pair is checked. Do not uncheck it, make sure it is checked. That will make sure that if you have some virtual machine connected and you are not able to you are not working with it, so it does not get disconnected. Okay, so once you have installed, that is fine. Now coming back to our machine, here you can see now the status, it says that machine is in running state, right? So I can click on this. Now here we'll be able to find public IP address using which we are going to connect to the virtual machine, and private IPv4 address. Okay, and all the details are available. But now let's click on connect, which is going to help us connect to this virtual machine directly from the UI, and it's going to open a terminal kind of thing using which we can connect. Okay, now here you can simply click on connect. You don't have to change anything. Username is correct, make sure. Okay, click on connect, And now you can see it's opening a terminal. From here also we can work with our virtual machine. So let's wait for this to complete. Now here you can see it has opened, and now we can communicate, or we can work with this also, okay, very easily. So this is one way of communicating or connecting to your virtual machine. Second way, and the way that I suggest generally, just copy this public IP address. Mobexterm is already opened. Click on session, click on SSH, remote host. In that put the public IP address, then username. In our case it's Ubuntu. Then we have advanced SSH, so click on that. Click on use private key, and this will help you. This will ask you to browse to the location. So click on that, click on downloads, and this is the key that we downloaded, right? I can click on this and click on open, and now click on OK, and you can see it is connected. But other thing that I suggest, right click on the IP sessions. One second, let me, yeah, right click here, click on rename session, rename it to something that you are familiar, and you can even put a tab color, and I'll just go with, let's say, purple. Okay, and now you can see, let me close this and connect again. Now you can see banner is changed and everything is looking much better, right? So now we are connected, and first thing that you should always do in Ubuntu machines or any other Linux machines, you should run sudo apt update. In Ubuntu we are supposed to run apt update. In other machines we have other commands to run. Okay, this is going to update all the default packages that are available in this Linux repository so that they are ready for usage. Okay, so make sure to run this command. Okay, now we know how we can create a EC2 machine and how we can communicate with it. Okay, so let us understand more concept with respect to that. So team, now let us see some more option. So if I click on actions, security, once again, yeah, instance setting. So here you see this option, change instance type, right? So here this option will be available once your instance is stopped. So let's do one thing. Let me stop this instance so that we can, as of now we are using T2 micro machine, right? And my requirement is that now I want to change the instance type from T2 micro to T2 medium. In that case, what we have to do, first let me refresh the page, and here let's select the machine, actions, settings, and once this is in completely stopped state, then this option should be visible, and then we can try to change the instance type from T2 micro to T2 medium. Okay, so let's wait for this to come into stopped stage. Now you can see it is in stopped state, right? So now we can try instance setting, instance type, right? Click on that. Now what I want to change the new instance type, which is going to be T2 medium. Okay, and scroll down, and yeah, so CPU options we are not changing anything, we are just keeping it as it is. And here we have 2 core on T2 medium. Here it was just 1 core. Okay, you can see these are the changes that are going to be done, and now I can click on change. Okay, and now I can start the instance. Okay, and this will take few minutes to completely come into running state. Yeah, it's in running state. Okay, and 104.5.5, I can rename this. The IP address has been changed now. Okay, I can put the new one, click on OK, and let's double click. Okay, so now the instance type has been changed. Okay, now but one scenario could be there. Here the problem that we just faced is that the IP address has been changed, which is a problem for us. We didn't wanted this IP address to be changed. So in that case, what we could have done? Okay, so let me show you that as well. Team, now let us see the scenario where we have this machine running, which is of T2 medium type, right? And as of now, it is having IP address of 104.55. Now my requirement is that I again want to change this instance type to some other machine. Previously, we saw that the IP address, public IP address, just changed when we change the instance type. And my requirement is that I want to change the instance type, but the IP address should be same. In that case, what we have to do, so on left side, if you scroll down, you'll be see this option, network and security. In that second option, you'll be able to see elastic IP. So click on that, click on allocate elastic IP address. Okay, and this should be fine here. Okay, so here we don't have to change anything, simply click on allocate. And now you can see a new IP address has been created, right? Select that and now click on actions, and we have associate elastic IP address. So click on that. Now we have to select the instance in which we want to associate. So you can see this is the instance as of now which is running. Select that, and now different. Okay, we will just leave it as it is, and we have selected the instance ID. If I show you EC2, and we have the instance ID of 0FD, right? And here also same thing. So now we have selected, click on associate, and let's wait for this. Okay, and now we can go to dashboard, click on instances running, click on open this, and now the IP address has been changed to 107.109, right? Correct. And if I open this, let me rename this session and change the IP address to the one that we just associated, and now paste this. Okay, so now we are connected, and now we have the new IP address. Now what I'm going to do now, I am going to change the instance type. For that, first we have to stop it. And associating elastic IP address is quite useful when you want to stop the machine for some time, but you don't want to like lose the IP address, the public IP address that we created, right? So in that case also you can use elastic IP address association. So now you can see it has went into stopped state, and I can click on actions, instance, and change the instance type. This time my requirement is that I want to change the machine to, okay. So now we have selected T2 large, and here you can see the differences. Okay, RAM is going to be doubled, core is vCPUs are same. Okay, click on change, and let us refresh the page. We will start it, and let's see what happens now. It will take few minutes to completely come into running state. Okay, it is in running state now, and the IP address is same. Okay, now here also if we reconnect, we can see we are able to connect with the same IP address. Okay, so this concept of elastic IP address is quite useful because you don't lose your IP address in this case. Okay.